Have you ever had one teacher or video tell you to do one thing and then another one tell you to do the seemingly opposite thing? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about that and give you some tips on how to think about tongue position a little bit differently. My name is Josh Gu, and after years of studying the clarinet with some of the best teachers from around the world, I am excited to be sharing my knowledge with you. So go to QuickStartClarinet.com or check the description on this video to see all of the wonderful resources I have to help you reach your clarinet dreams. And of course, subscribe to this channel for weekly clarinet and music tips and tricks. One of my teachers in high school said a good teacher should be able to explain the same thing in 12 different ways because everything's going to resonate with students in a slightly different way. So when you think about one teacher has 12 different ways of saying the same thing, and then another teacher has maybe another different 12 ways of saying the same thing, then you start to get into a little bit of a mess of lots of different ways of saying basically the same thing. So I had this a little bit recently with a student where we were talking about tongue position, and most teachers teach tongue position as like, if this is the reed, the tongue's sort of like this, so you have that nice high tongue position, and then the tip of the tongue gets close to the reed, and that's good. And for most students, that works pretty well, and they sort of get the right shape. Another teacher that I worked with in a master class, Charles Neidig, the professor at Juilliard, is really interesting. He always talks about tongue position with this kind of shape. Hopefully you can see that okay. And it's interesting because this is like that high back of the tongue, but then it sort of goes down and then arches up at the end. So it's almost like a little slide that's scooping up at the end, which is different than this, but it does kind of achieve the same result where you have the high back and then it goes down, but the difference is it has that little arch up at the end. And I think it can be really helpful to think of tongue position that way, so that it's sort of aiming the air at the reed a little bit more, and I think that's actually more accurate to what my tongue position feels like, where you have the high back, the middle sort of slopes down, and then the tip gets really close to the reed. But it's a different way of looking at it, and one student might be really trying to get this shape, another student might be really trying to get this shape, and you end up with slightly different variations on the tongue position. And it may seem like, well, one teacher said that it should have that little scoop up at the end, another teacher seemingly said that it shouldn't. Which one's right? And especially with tongue position, it's hard to know because you can't see your teacher's tongue while it's in their mouth and playing the clarinet. So which one's right? And maybe another thing too is it feels that certain way, like it feels like the tip of the tongue's coming up, but when you look at videos of x-rays of the tongue and MRIs of the tongue, it's not super clear if that is actually happening. So who knows what's going on inside of the mouth? And this is another interesting part of teaching and learning, is that the teacher is able to do something and has heard how to do it from their teachers, but they're able to do something. They probably learned how to do something from their teachers, so that's like one point of translations where their teacher said something, then they're doing it. Then they're consciously aware of what they're doing. That's a second step of translation. Then they're changing that into words, a third layer of translation, and telling that to the student. The student's hearing those words and translating it into action, and then the student's actually trying to make that action happen. So there's at least 5 layers of translation, maybe even more than that, along the way between making my sound and the student making their sound. So it's very easy for things to get lost in translation, especially when you can't actually see what's happening. So the point of this is when you hear one teacher saying one thing and one teacher seemingly saying something different, realize that maybe it's not actually that different and it was just translated slightly differently. And I think if you can sort of try to implement all the things that you hear from different teachers, you'll find that you start to come together with your own perspective and feeling of how it feels to play. And the last most important part of this is remember the end goal always. With tongue position, the point of tongue position is to have good fast air aiming at the reed really well. So whether you think about it just coming straight over the reed or straight over the tongue and into the reed like this, or you have the little bit of a slide effect where it scoops up into the reed, both of those are achieving the end goal of aiming at the reed, and the even more end goal is good sound. So it's great to hear different perspectives and try to do different things and change up how you're approaching the instrument. But remember, at the end of the day, it's all to sound good. So if you feel like you're able to get a really good sound and able to do all the things that you need to, but maybe your embouchure or air or tongue or whatever is slightly different than what you've heard from teachers on how to do it, it's probably actually just a translation thing, and you may very well be doing exactly what your teachers want, but it just doesn't translate exactly the same way to you. But if you're getting that sound and you're able to do everything that you need to do, then you're probably in good shape. Now, that being said, there may be some things like maybe your anchor tonguing, where your tip of your tongue is touching your bottom lip or bottom teeth, and you feel like that's a really good sound and you feel like your articulation's really good. But your teacher knows eventually you'll have to tongue something so fast that it might not work, or you'll have to get really good at double tonguing. Or another example is maybe you feel like you're able to play everything with really straight fingers, but your teacher knows eventually something will be so fast and have such finger combinations that you're not going to be able to pull it off with those straight fingers or overly curved fingers or whatever it may be, or it may lead to injury over many, many hours. So in those cases, definitely listen to your teacher and adjust things. But if you're able to play super fast, you're able to tongue super fast, you're able to sound good in all registers of the instrument without having to change your tongue position too much or your embouchure too much, then you're probably in good shape. That's the goal, is to be able to do all the things at a confident speed and a great quality of playing. And if you're doing that, then whether you're thinking this or this or this or this or whatever part that you're thinking, it's probably okay if it's working for you, because everybody's physiology is a little bit different. Everybody's translating things into words that don't always do a good job of demonstrating exactly what those things should be doing, especially the things that we can't see, like the tongue, or the things that we can't feel, like exactly how much embouchure pressure or air pressure or reed resistance, all of those different variables. So find what works for you. Make sure that it's something that you can be pretty steady and stable about through all the ranges, all the dynamics, all the tempos, and you're probably in good shape. Whether it fits with one teacher or another teacher or no teachers, you're probably okay if you can make the clarinet do what it needs to do for the music. So hopefully this gives you some insight into what it's like being a teacher and how you can get the most out of all of the different advice you might be getting from different videos and different teachers and different experiences for yourself. And thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.